Hi, welcome to the GameSparks demo. This particular demonstration is designed to be a high-level overview and walkthrough of the whole platform. We provide other videos which are designed to get you started and drill into some of the features and functions in more detail. In this video, we will keep it relatively high level, and this should take no more than 10 to 15 minutes of your time. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is create a new game. We do this by navigating to the drop-down menu in the top left of the screen and selecting the Add Game option, which is all the way down at the bottom of the menu. Creating a game is easy. You just enter the name and then give it a description. We also have this concept of templates. You can save your game configurations as templates and then reuse them to save you time setting up and configuring new versions of the same game or even different games of a similar genre. This is one of the recurring themes of GameSparks. It has been designed to save you lots of time. Once I'm ready, I can hit save. My game is now created. Once my game is set up, I next want to edit the new game object. I can set up an interface to Facebook so that I can allow my game to use Facebook Open Graph features from within the game. We use this to support social features such as find a friend to play, share scores, etc. GameSparks supports most of the leading social networks. In fact, anything that uses the OAuth 2 protocol can be easily plugged into our registration and authentication workflow. We already support Facebook, Google+, and Twitter out of the box. GameSparks is used to manage in-game currencies, and we currently allow you to support up to 3 of them. Although if you need more, just tell us and we will add them for you. At the game level, you can set up sign-up bonuses for your players, such that when they download and play the game for the first time, they can be given these rewards. Currencies don't have to be monetary per se, they could just as easily be loyalty points or something like that. The way we handle them on the back-end server is super flexible. We support the concept of snapshots. Snapshots are powerful and allow you to do a few different things. First, they enable you to maintain the server-side config and keep it in sync with the client side of the game. You could therefore have a live game that is using the back-end and then start work on a version 2. The platform enables you to create a new snapshot so that you can work on the server side without impacting the live game. Secondly, the GameSparks platform allows you to segment your players into groups of your specification. You build these groups using the analysis tools. You can then use snapshots to serve a different game configuration, in-app purchase prices for example, to different segments or groups of users. This is useful for A/B testing, localization, or just for supporting different segment optimizations. For the remainder of this demonstration, I'm going to use a game we set up already. It's tic-tac-toe, and the reason for using this is that it is a game everybody knows so that we can focus on talking about the platform rather than confusing you with the specific rules of our game. Next, we're going to look at events. When you have the SDK installed, you can then access the rich GameSparks library from within your game to access all of the standard features and functions that exist in the platform, all of which are documented in detail in the docs library. Events are for when you want to build game-specific interfaces to the back end. Perhaps you want to allow your players to save levels, or maybe you want to record game-specific events for analytical purposes. Events allow you to do this. You're effectively creating functions or methods that can be called from within the game client that will pass parameters of your design to the back end. Setting up an event is easy. Enter a name, description, and a shortcode. Shortcodes are used to uniquely identify and reference the server-side objects from within the client. For tic-tac-toe, we only need 2 of these events. It's a really straightforward game, and most of what it requires from the back end, leaderboards, friend matching, achievements, etc., is all provided by the GameSparks API without any changes. However, in order to support multiplayer, we actually implement the entire game engine on the GameSparks platform. The client really only renders a screen and tells the server where the players place their piece. All of the board data, the turn data, etc. is done on the server. So in tic-tac-toe, we only need 2 new events. Take turn, which is triggered whenever a player makes a move, and game completion, which is fired when the game is over and handles the updating of the leaderboards, etc. Developers can set up as many events with as many parameters as required. For the take turn event, we only need 2 parameters, row and column. If we wanted to add another one, we could just as easily do so by clicking the plus in the top right of the window and filling in the details of the new parameter. Different parameter types are supported. We support numbers, strings, and more complex JSON strings. We also support binary parameters. Next, we will look at leaderboards. The key things to highlight about the GameSparks leaderboards are the following. They are fully cross-platform. They are optimized for high performance, supporting millions of concurrent writes with millisecond response times when you're trying to retrieve board updates. We support complex ranking algorithms without noticeable performance degradation. And finally, they're completely flexible and easy to set up. For tic-tac-toe, we only needed one. However, adding a new one is straightforward. Click on the plus in the top right of the window and then enter a name, description, and a shortcode as before. I'm going to cancel that as I don't really want another leaderboard in this game right now. Leaderboards are then based around parameters you pass in from the games and events as per the last step. Recall at the end of the game we call the game completion event, which passes in the result in terms of who won, lost and drew the game. We can then access these parameters to configure the leaderboard. We can change the order or edit the filtering criteria and grouping algorithms. Free-to-play and freemium games rely on virtual goods and in-app purchases to make money. You can use the GameSparks platform to set up and manage these on the server. Managing catalogs can be quite a chore, particularly if you have to do it across a number of different stores. And ultimately you want to be able to manage your game catalog centrally across all platforms. GameSparks allows you to do that. To add a virtual good, simply click on the plus in the top right of the window, enter in a name, shortcode and description, which by now you're getting used to. You can also add tags which enable you to group virtual goods, for example by level, and then these can be accessed from within the client to manage which goods are available when, etc. You can use this functionality to manage the pricing of your virtual goods relative to the game's virtual in-game currencies. And you can set up the link between the goods and their equivalents on the store so that any purchases done via the store can be reconciled on the server side. This is a good way of enforcing security around payments and preventing people from bypassing them, as is often reported on platforms like Steam. Most games have achievements these days. Using GameSparks, you can make your achievements operate fully cross-platform, which means players that win on one device or platform will have their rewards when they use another device or platform, which is an important requirement for most games. There is also a lot of flexibility in how you set them up and configure them. Creating an achievement is straightforward. You click the plus icon on the top right of the window to add a new one. As with most of the GameSparks objects, you give it a name, a description, and a shortcode. You can then specify how you want to award the achievement. You can tie it to a leaderboard event, for example, or you can award it from a script run on the server side, which has more complex game rules. You can reward your players with a virtual good or any combination of in-game currency too. If you tie the achievement to a leaderboard event, then you can specify the calculation or condition triggers required to award it, which gives you quite a lot of flexibility. Next, we are going to look at challenges. The challenges menu option is where you set up and configure the multiplayer mechanics of your game. To support multiplayer, your game can write as much data about the game's state to the server at whatever frequency you want. And therefore, to give a game a multiplayer feel, you can retrieve data from the back end as required too. So you can, for example, update the status of other players' villages and towns on a map. Challenges are used when you want to get 2 or more players to specifically engage in a multiplayer session. The GameSparks platform enables you to set up both synchronous and asynchronous modes of challenge, supporting both turn-based and real-time multiplayer modes. You can configure a challenge to support play from 2 to any number of players. It can be open to the whole game, for example. You can define start and end times, and you can specify limits as to how many attempts the players can have to win the challenge. You've also got a lot of flexibility in terms of defining how the outcome of the challenge is determined. The default way is to base a challenge on an internal leaderboard, so whoever ranks the highest in that leaderboard as the challenge ends, wins. You can write cloud code to calculate the outcome as we do in tic-tac-toe, or you can say the first to an achievement wins the challenge. Cloud code enables you to script and write game logic, which is then executed on the server. The execution of cloud code is always triggered by an event, and those events are broken into 3 key categories. There are game-specific events, which are tied to the events that you've set up on the platform or are tied to challenges that you have set up. There are system events which are fired automatically each time an API call is made. And there are messaging events which are fired when an in-game message or push notification is issued. To demonstrate the power of this, let's look at tic-tac-toe again. If you recall, one of the game's specific events we set up was the Take Turn event, which is fired each time a player takes a turn on the device side. The client side of tic-tac-toe does very little now. The game engine, albeit not a very complicated one for such a game, has been taken out and re-implemented in GameSparks cloud code. Each time a turn is taken, this script is executed. If we take a look at it, you will see that you can access the full API from within the code, and this particular script does some validation, gets the latest board data, and then works out if the game has a result yet after the last turn. If it has, it then notifies each of the players. If not, it hands control over to the other player and manages the turn sequence. We also support modules, which allow you to write particular logic that is executed regularly and then call that from within the other cloud code snippets. You can use the GameSparks platform to manage all of your in-game messaging, including notifications. Once you set up the interfaces with the key platforms you are using, you can then edit each of the key message events, enable the messages, and customize them as required. The messages allow you to use substitution variables so that you can personalize them to the players. If you want a message to also be sent as a push notification, you can just enable push as follows. You can manage all of your game's DLC or downloadable content on our platform. We just require you to upload the file and give it a unique shortcode. From there on in, you can access it from within the cloud code. So if you wanted to send a sound file to a player, for example, you could create an event that triggers the execution of a script that in turn delivers this binary file to the current player. We provide you with an interface to our data cluster. In Cloud Data, we provide an explorer to our MongoDB instances that allow you to access your own data as you wish. You can see all your own player data, for example, and export it if you wish so that you can process it in another tool. Here you see the structure of the player records we are using for tic-tac-toe and how we store all of that data in raw JSON format. You can also create new collections of your own and define the attributes they will have. You could use this to store level data, for example. The important thing to remember is that all of your game data is just that, yours, and you have full access and control over it at the very lowest granular level. Once your game is live, analytics will become essential to your ongoing game management. GameSparks captures all of the key game metrics around usage, revenues, engagement, and much more. We store the data in its most granular form and then enable you to configure charting and graphing options. You can set up as many reporting tabs as you like and then configure the wide range of big number displays, charts, and graphs. However, we also enable you to define your own game events very easily, as we showed you before. Using these, you can record as many specific events as you like and then build your own charts and reports. If you already have a third-party reporting solution, we are happy to interface with that either via an export-import method or directly with server-to-server API calls. Finally, before finishing, I just want to show you the test harness. This feature allows you to execute all of the GameSparks API calls from within the application and see exactly what gets returned from the server. To illustrate this, let me register a new user. On the right-hand side, you can see the registration request in green and then the server responses in blue and yellow. This is a powerful tool because you can actually use it to play out in its entirety the game of tic-tac-toe and see exactly what the server is doing in each step. You can also record your tests to save time when you want to re-execute them. All of this helps you to both develop the server interface and test it as you do so. We will complete the demonstration here in the documentation area where all of this material is available in document format. We also have a number of tutorials and other videos to help you get started. Thank you for your time, and we really hope you have a great experience using the GameSparks platform. Please register now on https://portal.gamesparks.net to gain your free access and give your game the back end it deserves.